Awesome! Hi everybody! Welcome back to our weekly live stream. My name is Alicia, and this week we are going to talk about using the present perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous. Many of you have asked questions about this grammar point, especially the difference between present perfect continuous and just present perfect. So today we are going to focus on this grammar point, and I'm going to explain when we use it, why we use it, and a couple of ways that you can use it to make questions too. So as you join live, please make sure to like and share the video. Also send us a comment in the chat so that we can see you. I see some of you on YouTube. Hello, Rendell, Sele, Juby, Luz, Manfred, Roberto. Hi everybody. Thanks very much for coming. I think Facebook is on the way right now. I see one person, Mohammed. Hello. Hi there. Great. So today's topic will be kind of grammar heavy. I'm going to focus on grammar. Also, as always, please don't forget to check out the free stuff we have for you. You can find free vocabulary and phrase PDFs from the link below the video on YouTube or above the video on Facebook. I will introduce those a little bit later. Okay, I see more people on Facebook now. Hi there, Sophia and Sam and Myung. Hi, Fida and Mirtha and all kinds of people. Great. Okay, I see lots on YouTube as well too. Julio and Sergio and Mary. Great. Lots of people there as well. Fantastic. So we're going to wait another minute or so for other people to join the lesson. While we wait, I want to, as always, share one more quick kind of announcement or reminder. And that is, this week I wanted to remind you about the weekly series we have on our YouTube channel called Ask Alicia. This is a chance for you to send questions, like those little questions that you have that maybe you find as you're reading things or as you're watching TV and so on. It's a chance for you to send those questions to me. I read them all, and then I choose a few questions that I think are helpful for everyone, and we talk a little bit about those. So this is a screenshot from a recent episode about symbols. I talked about symbols that we use for social media and just in general when we're writing online. So if you're interested, you can find the Ask Alicia series on the YouTube channel, and you can send your questions from the link below the video on the YouTube channel too. So definitely send some questions there. We get a lot, so please notice that I can't answer everything. And also, you might want to check the other videos on the channel as well to see if there's an answer already available to your question. So please check that out. That would be awesome. Okay, I think, let's see, we're about 3 minutes in, so I'm going to share the video and then I'm going to get started on today's lesson. As I said, today's topic is the present perfect continuous tense, and we're going to be very grammar heavy today. So I'm going to break this into 3 parts, and I'm going to speak a bit slowly because this is, for some people, a challenging grammar point. I'm going to talk first about how to make a present perfect continuous statement, and then why we make it, why we use it, and the difference between this and present perfect tense. And then second, I'm going to talk about using it with for and since, and we'll talk a little bit about the negative. Finally, I'll talk a bit about questions with this grammar. So let's get started. Let's begin over here with how to make the present perfect continuous and why we need it. First, how to make it. We begin a present perfect statement with the subject of our sentence. So for example, I, you, we, he, she. We follow our subject with have or has. So if your subject is I or you or we use have. I have. You have, we have. If your subject is he or she or it, we use has. So she has, he has, it has. So depending on your subject, you'll need to change this part here. After this, we'll use been. We follow this with a verb in the ing form. So you might hear this form called progressive form. You might hear it called continuous. ing verb. That's how I've marked it for this lesson. When we want to make a negative sentence, we change this part right here. So subject plus haven't, if your subject is I or you or we. I haven't, we haven't, they haven't as well. If your subject is he, she, or it, we use hasn't to make a negative statement. So some examples of this. First, I haven't been sleeping well lately. I haven't been sleeping well lately. So here my subject is I. I'm using haven't here, a negative, and I'm using been followed by the ing form of a verb. In this case, I'm using lately to mean in the recent time period. I haven't been sleeping well lately. Keep in mind this haven't and this hasn't as well. These are the reduced forms of have not and has not. It sounds much more natural to use hasn't and haven't than have not and has not. At native speed, this sentence sounds like I haven't been sleeping well lately. I haven't been sleeping well lately. This sentence then uses a different subject. This sentence focuses on she as the subject. Here, she's, you'll notice this she's, I'll come back to this. She's been coming to work late recently. So again, my subject she, here is this apostrophe S. In cases where your subject is he or she or it, it's very common to use this apostrophe S in writing to mean has. So this does not mean is. We know that because the apostrophe S is followed by been, and this is a set pattern for this grammar point. So we know it is not she is, because in a she is pattern, we follow is with an adjective or maybe with a noun phrase. So here we're following it with been. So we know this apostrophe S is has, not is. So she's been coming to work late recently. So again, here I've used recently. Recently and lately, these both mean like in the last few days or maybe in the last week or the last month or so, in the recent time period. So what do these sentences mean? How are they different? Why should we use this continuous form here? To explain, I want to look at this kind of diagram here. I use this sort of timeline a lot, I think. But to look at the key points on this timeline, let's imagine this star here is now. This is the conversation right now. So when I say this sentence, I haven't been sleeping well lately, or she's been coming to work late recently. This progressive form, this present progressive form, is used to mean something started in the past. So if we imagine this dot is the point where the action started. So at this part of the timeline, it's hard to see a little. At this part of the timeline, this is the past. This happened before. This part of the timeline is into the future. So next week, tomorrow. When we use this grammar point, we're talking about an action that started sometime in the past. And the action continues until the present. I've got an arrow here too, because it suggests that perhaps the action is going to continue after the conversation as well. So I haven't been sleeping well lately. That means in this recent time, before the conversation, this has been my condition. I haven't been sleeping well lately. Let's compare this then to, it's really hard to see, sorry. Maybe you can see it a little better than I can on my monitor, I don't know. This dotted line here, I've made a dotted line here and put a question mark inside the dotted line, thank you. This part, I want to use this to show just regular present perfect tense. So we use regular present perfect tense. One use is to talk about a general life experience before the present, like sometime in the past, but we don't know the specific point in time, or it's not important. It's just not important. So we use this for like travel. I have been to France, for example. So we use this to talk about things that really we don't need to know exactly when the action happened, or it's not important to know. We use this to talk very often, as we'll see in a moment, about something that started very recently or started at a specific point in time and continued until the present. So if you want to emphasize a continuing action, it's probably a good idea to use the present perfect continuous to do that. If you just want to talk about a life experience in the past, you can use present perfect tense, simple present perfect tense. So I know there's one really common question that I see a lot, and I haven't checked the chat, but I'm sure someone has asked this question. Like, what about a situation where you can say something like this is a really common question. Like, I've lived in this city for 6 years. I've lived in this city for 6 years. This is a simple present perfect tense sentence. I've lived in this city. I have lived. What's the difference between this sentence and I've been living in this city for 6 years? What's the difference here? The answer is there's no difference in this case. In this case, there's no difference. So you'll notice live, this particular verb, this is one that the condition doesn't really change a lot for most people. So I've lived in this city for 6 years and I've been living in this city for 6 years. They mean the same thing. This is a case where you can choose either. It's fine. Another one that you can use, usually you can use either, is with the verb work. Like, I've worked in this company for 6 years, or I've been working in this company for 6 years. Both are fine. So you'll notice those verbs, those are things that don't really change so much. If you compare this to a verb like, for example, walk. Like, I've walked around my neighborhood before. That's a general life experience statement. So walking is something we do a lot. If you say, like, I've been walking around the neighborhood for an hour, that refers to a continuing action. So think about this. Is your goal to express a continuing action, something that started in the past and continues to the present? If so, present perfect continuous might be a good choice. If you just want to talk about general life experience, use just the basic present perfect here. Okay, so that's our introduction, a long introduction to today's grammar. I want to check a couple comments. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the comments for that first part. Some examples. Does the present perfect continuous always use been? Yes, BAME on YouTube. So we need to use this been. I have been, she has been, something, ing. So not I have coming or I have going or something. I have been plus the ing form. Other examples. I haven't been to New York. Okay, so that's a present perfect example. Let's think of some examples we can use for present perfect continuous. So think about this. I'll put a question on the board, and then we'll go to this next part where you can practice using for and since. So think about this question a little bit. So send in the comments, even if you're not watching this live, that's okay. So send a comment with this question, if you can. What have you been doing recently? What have you been doing recently? Sorry, it's hard to read. One more time. What have you been doing recently? What have you been doing recently? So if you can, send your answer in the comments. I will check it. If you don't understand this question, that's okay. I'm going to talk about it later. So I'll take one quick break, think about this question, and then send your examples, and we'll talk about it. Okay. I'm going to take a break. I mentioned earlier, as always, we have free stuff for you from the link below the video on YouTube or above the video if you are watching on Facebook. So present perfect continuous, because it is a grammar point, it's not specific to like a specific, group of vocabulary words. We need to use this grammar point with verbs. So you can pick and choose whichever kinds of verbs you need to use a lot. So maybe if you travel a lot, I'll just show quickly. I'll show quickly a couple of these. If you're a person who travels a lot, you might check out the airport PDF. On the back, there are some vocabulary words, and here it's hard to see, I know, but here on the back there's a Q&A at the airport, and this one you might use the present perfect continuous to answer questions at the airport, like I've been traveling for a week or something like that. So this is one example of a situation where you might use the present perfect continuous tense. So please keep in mind, different from just regular present perfect. This is one. Another time when you may use present perfect continuous, this is the business PDF, the business one. On the back, when you need to give a project report. Here at the top, there are some phrases that you can use. It's so hard to see, sorry. There's some phrases you can use for business meetings, but you'll use present perfect continuous to talk about things you have been working on until the meeting. So this is another case where you will probably use this grammar point. So please check that out. I'll show a few more a little bit later. Okay, good. So if you're just joining live, today's topic is present perfect continuous. I talked about how to make it and why we use this at the beginning of the lesson. If you missed it, please watch the recording of this lesson. Okay, let's go to part 2. Part 2 is a little shorter, so let's take a look at this part. Part 2 focuses on using for and since. For and since. So my example sentences in the first part of the lesson focused on using lately and recently. So lately and recently mean like the time just before now. So like the last few days or the last week. So something that happened like very close to the present. When we use for and since, we're using them to express the specific point in time something started, or the time period the action has continued. So, for example, when we make a sentence with for, we attach it to the end of this pattern. So, we use the same pattern, subject, have or has, been, ing verb, for time period. So, time period, keep in mind, a time period is like 3 days, 2 weeks, 4 months. So not just one day, but a length of time. So for a time period. When we use since, again, the same pattern can be used, and we attach since to the end here. But when we use since, we need to use a point in time, So specifically this point right here. So since 2019, or since last Tuesday, or since 8 o'clock this morning. So a specific point in time. That's what we use since with. So I want to make one more point about this. I want to talk about something that's a little bit challenging maybe, and that is using this with the negative. So at the beginning of this lesson, I talked about using haven't and hasn't to make negatives, and we talked about one example here. But when we use like for and since, it can be a little bit confusing. So let's look at an example first. Let's take a look at this example. Let's imagine a conversation, question and answer. So let's imagine your friend asks you, have you been waiting for a long time? Have you been waiting for a long time? So you go to meet your friend at the movie theater, and your friend says, have you been waiting for a long time? And you say, no, I haven't been waiting for a long time. So this sentence, actually, even though it begins with no, this sentence means the speaker has been waiting. So if this is me, if I am answering the question, I'm waiting, or I was waiting for that person. But this no means I wasn't waiting, or I haven't been waiting for a long time. So, have you been waiting? No, I haven't been waiting for a long time. This kind of negative answer, this is used for confirmations. So you're confirming something. Sorry, confirmations, that's a little bit messy. Confirmation, so confirmation means checking, to check something. So another example would be like if you see your coworker has been working really, really hard and you say, have you been working for 24 hours? Again, you're checking with your coworker and your coworker says, no, I haven't been working for 24 hours. I took a break. So again, they have been working, yes, but they want to fix your original statement, or they want to make a change to the thing you said before. So this is a tricky, difficult part, maybe, of using this in the negative. So please keep this in mind. But let's go back to this question. What have you been doing recently? And maybe some of you have used for or since to talk about this. So let's practice then making a couple of expressions with recently is okay, or with for or since. So did anybody write anything in the comments about for use the question that I asked? I've been waiting for your lecture every day. Nice, good one. That was from Sam on Facebook. Nice one, nice one. Let's see. Sophia on YouTube says, I've been watching the NBA game since this morning. Very nice example with since. So Sophia used since this morning. Perfect. So this morning is a point in time. Perfect. Ruben said, I have been working since 2014. Good. Kelvin said, I have been talking to my bestie all day long. Bestie means best friend. Very nice. Oh, someone, Moody on YouTube says, you mean, can you scroll back down? Sorry. Thank you. You mean we can use present perfect continuous with a time and present perfect without? Yes, that is true. So in present perfect, you don't have to, in many cases we do not, include the time. We leave it out. It's not important. With present perfect continuous, we include the time period or the specific point in time. That is correct. Other questions. I've been following your classes. Very nice answer to this question. Good job. Someone says, I'm not going to read that comment. Someone says, I have been following you since 2017. Good. Following you or following your lessons would be a nice one. Good. Is there a form of passive, present, perfect, continuous? Can you give me an example? Passive? I'm not sure. Other ones. I've been watching superhero movies recently. Very nice. Scareson. Hello. Haven't seen you for a while. Someone says, I'm writing like a doctor. Yes, I'm writing very quickly. I apologize, but I try to read everything clearly, so I hope that helps. Someone says, I've been singing since 2001. Very nice. On Facebook, I've been waiting for you for a long time. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Okay, great. Nice examples, everybody. Let's finish up then. I'll take one more break, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about making questions with this grammar. So if you missed it earlier, I showed some examples where we might use present perfect continuous. My examples were in business situations where you explain your recent work, your recent progress. And another example is when you are traveling at the airport. So these are a couple situations where you may need to use present perfect continuous. So you can get these from the link below the video on YouTube or above the video on Facebook. Some other situations are when you're talking about eating too. For example, I haven't been eating meat recently. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, I haven't been eating meat recently. There are some food vocabulary words on the back of this dining. So it says dining. This is for like restaurants, going to restaurants and so on. So this is another case where you may use present perfect continuous as well. And for talking, this says romance and love, yes, but you can talk about relationships in general, just your friendships even using this. Like I've been seeing my friends once a week lately and so on. So there are lots of different situations where you may want to use present perfect continuous. So check out any of those PDFs. You can find them for free from the link below the video on YouTube or above the video on Facebook. If you're watching on Instagram, please check YouTube or Facebook. Sorry, I cannot see your comments live. Okay, let's go on to the last part of today's lesson. Of course, if you're just joining, please don't forget to like and share the video so that other people can find it. Okay, let's take a look at making questions. So I have two types of question here. This first type of question is an information question. You want to get more information from someone. This begins with question word, and when I say question word, I mean who, what, where, when, why, how long, and so on. This is the first type of question I'll talk about. The second type of question pattern I'll talk about is this yes or no question pattern. So we'll talk about two. Let's begin with this information question type. So to make an information question, we use question word to begin, plus have or has, or in the negative, haven't or hasn't. And then we use our subject, plus been, plus our ing verb. So I asked you earlier in the lesson, what have you been doing lately? What have you been doing lately? This is a very common question when you meet a friend or maybe you meet a former colleague that you have not seen for a long time. At native speed, this question sounds like, what have you been doing lately? What have you been doing lately? So this question means from, it's hard to see now, from like the recent past, so lately. So from the recent past until this conversation, what were your activities? What have you been doing lately? What have you been doing recently? So this is a very good question to know, of course, to ask. So please try to use this question. And also think about how to answer this question using today's grammar point. So some of you wrote your answers in the chat earlier. That was awesome. What have you been doing lately? I think someone said, I've been watching superhero movies lately, or I've been watching your lessons. So I've been, ing form. I've been. So this is a great question to know. Of course, we can use other question words here. So this one, what have you been doing lately? Or like, how long have you been studying English? That's another very good one for you to know. So you can change your question word and change the type of information you hope to get. Okay, I'm running out of time, so let's go to the last point here. Have and has begins a yes or no question. Have or has plus your subject plus been plus an ing verb again. So this type of question, this is good to use, as I said a little bit earlier. This is good to use for confirming things. So again, confirming means checking something. So here, this example, like I'm shocked about something in this example. Have you been following me? Have you been following me? Or have the police been watching your house? So it's like you want to ask a shocking question about a recent activity that started in the past and continues to the conversation. Have you been following me? So notice have and then my subject, you. So these two match, yeah? Not has you, but have you been, same as here. Following, in this case, is my verb, following me. Have you been following me? If I change the subject, has he been following me? Has she been following me? So please remember that this part, your have and has, needs to match your subject, just as we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. Ruben says, have you been scolding me? Okay, maybe there's a situation where we can use that. Someone on Facebook says, I have been learning from a teacher on Facebook. Very nice example. Very nice example. Okay, so this is how we can make information questions and yes/no questions with this grammar point. So this is a challenging grammar point, but I hope that this lesson is helpful for you. Of course, if you have questions about this, please send them in the comments, or as I talked about at the beginning of the lesson, send it to the Ask Alicia question portal. Hello, Marivic. Hello there. One of our members has joined our chat. Hi. So, as I said, I have to finish today's lesson there. Thank you to everyone who joined. If you missed it, this video has been recorded, so please watch it on Facebook or on YouTube at any time. We will be back next week. Of course, next week will be June 12th. My gosh, it's going so fast. Every week I think that. But next week, Wednesday, June 12th, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our topic will be how to speak to a doctor. How to speak to a doctor. So I've gotten a few requests for like expressing like your sickness, talking about sickness or when you don't feel very good. So I'm going to focus on speaking to a doctor. Good for people who travel, I think, and for people maybe who are doing like study abroad, students, I think. So this is a good one to know for emergency situations as well. So please join us next week, June 12th, how to speak to a doctor, every Wednesday, of course, at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is New York City time. If you don't know your local time, please Google it. That's everything from me, I think. Please don't forget to check out your free stuff from the link below the video on YouTube, above the video on Facebook. I showed you a bunch of these earlier. But please do practice present perfect continuous and think about the differences between this point and present perfect tense, as I talked about earlier. So thank you very much to everybody for joining this week's live lesson. Thank you for all of your example sentences, and thank you for liking and sharing the video too. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a nice weekend, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.